Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature, video number 297, Popular Home Remedies of the Pennsylvania Germans. This is a very interesting little folkloric work. It's only 48 pages long, but it's fairly dense, and it relates to several works, actually, that I've already edited, which I found fascinating. Link in the description to my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links are to my books blogs. There's plenty of other folklore there under the folklore header. Have fun, because a lot of it is extremely interesting. Lore about plants, lore about birds, a dozen different cultures throughout thousands of years of time. Anyway, this particular work, of course, it talks about the Pennsylvania Germans, and a lot of it, therefore, is derived, at least partially, from Hohmann's powwows, which is a bric-a-brac, like, Petit Albert-style work from the early 1800s, quite common among that group at the time. It's technically a grimoire, but it's a latter-day sort of grimoire, and so the content is a little bit different. It's more folklore, simple charm, superstition, astrology, whereas those from before, basically the end of the Renaissance or the Enlightenment period, they tend to be high magic with a lot of symbols and elaborate rituals and so forth. There's a difference between the two. Big difference. Modern grimoires tend to emulate the former because they were more stylized and they just look more occult in nature. That's basically a gimmick. Of course, the books of Moses are mentioned as well, among other works also. And again, I edited Hohmann's powwows, and also Albertus Magnus' Egyptian Secrets is mentioned as well as a contemporary grimoire to this period. The remedies and superstitions here are generally simplistic, and some of them are at this point nationally or internationally famous, like the idea of a black cat being unlucky. And stuff like that. The idea of using salt, throwing it over your shoulder to blind the devil if you've spilled salt, because salt was considered very important. In ancient times, it was more expensive than gold, and so it was considered quite an unlucky omen. It talks a little bit about birth omens, things of that nature, like a child being born, for instance, with long hair. The idea is that unless the hair thins or falls out fairly shortly thereafter, the child is at hazard for dying. And it talks about simple, like, sort of folk remedies as well. Folk medicine, you would generally term it. It's quite a dense compilation. And also, it's very funny. And this was common in certain works of the period, especially when they dealt with things like love magic or fortune-telling related to marriage and progeny and things of that nature. It alludes over and over in what would have been considered in this particular period of time over a century ago to be a rather spicy and sly manner to sex. Of course, it doesn't actually talk about it in explicit terms, but the author of this particular work is a skeptic. Was definitely approaching this from an academic angle, and so there's a lot of sarcasm in this work, and some of the asides are quite funny. And definitely with relation to little charms and tricks in order to secure luck in trying to date or marry, to court a female especially, or to find out who your husband is, he has a great time. And it's actually funny because the initial writer of the foreword of this work almost chastises the author for them. He says, well, he's a great friend of mine, and maybe I'm a little bit more superstitious than he is, and it's obvious he doesn't believe in this. Like, part of it was, what did he say? He said something about not wanting to receive a $2 bill because it was considered unlucky and things like that. He received one, and so he, like, buried it under a rock at a crossroads and stuff. It's very, very interesting because even the folklore has a folkloric backstory, therefore, to it, especially in that initial foreword from the initial edition. Definitely one of the funniest works that I've read and edited. I tend, if I'm interested in a work, I'm not just the editor, I'm also a reader of that work. And so I really appreciated this one. It's again, it's shorter, but it's a very dense compilation of folklore. If you are interested in it at all, I suggest Hohmann's powwows, and also Egyptian Secrets by Albertus Magnus. Of course, it's not the actual author, but ascribed to. These two particular works are definitely good compilations of folk magic, you could term it, as opposed, again, to the high ritual stuff that you get with the Ars Goetia, or something like that, or even some of the Petit Albert's works. Now, that's sort of the stand-in. The reason that I wanted to release a professional edition years ago of that is because it sort of stands in the exact gap at just the right time in history to be a perfect fusion of the high magic, the talismanic sort of side of things, and the folk magic side of things, which is anthropologically maybe more interesting in the historical sense. So again, link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links to my books, blogs. Highly recommended. Excellent work overall. That's about all. Peace out.